You know that moment when you realize you've been living in a romantic comedy, except you're not the leading lady? You're the clueless wife who just discovered her husband's affair through a text notification that popped up on his phone while he was in the shower. Yeah, that was my Wednesday morning wake-up call, served with a side of existential crisis and lukewarm coffee. My name is Sophia, and apparently, I've been starring in my own personal soap opera without even knowing I had the leading role. Picture this. There I was, innocently trying to find Andrew's charger because mine decided to die at the most inconvenient moment. Isn't that always the way? When his phone lights up with a message that made my blood pressure spike faster than a Wall Street trader on cocaine. Can't wait to see you later, baby. Last night was incredible. Love you. Madison. Now, here's the thing about betrayal. It has this delightful way of making you question absolutely everything. Like, was I hallucinating? Did I accidentally pick up a stranger's phone? Was this some elaborate prank orchestrated by the universe to test my sanity? Spoiler alert, it wasn't. Madison. The name rolled around in my brain like a marble in a washing machine. Loud, annoying, and impossible to ignore. Madison. Where had I heard that name before? Oh, right. Madison Collins, Andrew's incredibly efficient new assistant at his marketing firm. The one he'd been praising for weeks about her exceptional organizational skills and fresh perspective on client relations. Fresh perspective, my foot. More like fresh everything else, apparently. Standing there in my decade-old pajamas, holding my cheating husband's phone like it was radioactive waste, I had what I can only describe as an out-of-body experience. You know those moments when you're watching yourself from above, thinking, well, this is it. This is how the story ends. Time to lawyer up and take half of everything. But then something miraculous happened. Instead of collapsing into a puddle of tears and self-pity, I started laughing. Not the healthy kind of laughter that comes from watching a good comedy. No. This was the slightly unhinged laughter of a woman who'd just realized she'd been married to a walking cliché for 8 years. Andrew chose that exact moment to walk out of the bathroom, towel around his waist, hair still dripping, looking like he'd stepped out of a men's grooming magazine. Too bad his moral compass hadn't gotten the same attention as his abs. "Morning, beautiful," he said, flashing that $1,000,000 smile that had convinced me to say yes to his proposal all those years ago. "You're up early. Beautiful. Right." I wondered if Madison got the same generic pet name, or if she rated something more creative. Probably gorgeous or stunning. I was clearly stuck in the basic tier of his romantic vocabulary. "Just couldn't sleep," I replied, setting his phone down on the nightstand with the casual air of someone who definitely hadn't just discovered her entire marriage was built on lies. "Weird dreams, you know." He nodded absently, already focused on getting dressed for another day of work. And by work, I now understood he meant playing hide the sausage with his 20-something assistant. The man had the audacity to kiss my forehead before leaving, like some sort of twisted morning ritual. "Have a great day, honey. Love you. Love you." The words hung in the air like stale perfume. I watched him grab his keys, his phone, his carefully crafted facade of being a devoted husband, and walk out the door to continue living his double life. That's when the real Sophia emerged. Not the naive woman who'd spent the last 8 years playing house with a master manipulator, but the strategic, calculating version of myself that had been dormant for far too long. See, Andrew had made one crucial mistake in his affair planning. He'd underestimated exactly how petty and resourceful his wife could be when properly motivated. Most women would have confronted him immediately, demanded explanations, maybe thrown some dishes. But I wasn't most women. I was the woman who'd built my own successful consulting business from scratch, who'd negotiated $1,000,000 deals while wearing a smile that could cut glass. If Andrew wanted to play games, then game on. The wheels in my head started turning faster than a hamster on espresso. Madison Collins, the fresh-faced assistant with exceptional organizational skills. 24 years old, according to the company directory I'd helped Andrew update just last month. Ambitious, eager to please, and apparently flexible in her job description. What if, instead of destroying her life immediately, I decided to make it interesting? What if I could turn this whole situation into the most elaborate psychological experiment ever conducted in the name of marital revenge? That's when the idea hit me like a freight train carrying a cargo load of poetic justice. I needed a personal assistant for my growing business. Someone young, energetic, with excellent organizational skills and a fresh perspective on client relations. Someone exactly like Madison Collins. The beauty of it was almost artistic in its simplicity. She had no idea who I was. Andrew had been very careful to keep his work life and home life separate, which suddenly made perfect sense. To her, I was just another potential employer. To me, she was about to become the star of the most delicious revenge plot ever conceived. I spent the rest of that morning researching everything I could find about Madison Collins. LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram. The girl had left a digital trail wider than the Grand Canyon. Fresh out of college, originally from Ohio, moved to New York to pursue her dreams in marketing. How adorable. She was about to get a masterclass in a very different kind of marketing, the kind where the product being sold was pure, unadulterated karma. The recruitment process was almost too easy. I posted a job listing for a personal assistant position with my company, marketing it as an exclusive opportunity for exceptional candidates with superior organizational skills. Within hours, I had dozens of applications, but only one that mattered. Madison's resume landed in my inbox like a gift from the revenge gods. Her cover letter was peppered with buzzwords about synergy and paradigm shifts. Clearly, she'd been spending quality time learning the corporate lingo from my dear husband. How thoughtful of him to provide her with a well-rounded education. I scheduled her interview for the following Monday, making sure to book it during Andrew's lunch hour. The irony was too delicious to resist. While he was probably taking her to some romantic bistro, feeding her lies about leaving his wife, she'd be sitting across from said wife, completely oblivious to the cosmic joke unfolding around her. Monday arrived with all the anticipation of Christmas morning, if Christmas involved psychological warfare and strategic manipulation. I dressed carefully for the occasion. Professional but approachable. Successful but not intimidating. After all, I wanted her to take the job. Madison walked into my office at exactly 2 p.m., and I have to admit, Andrew had decent taste. She was pretty in that fresh-faced, optimistic way that screams, "I still believe in fairy tales and happily ever after." Her handshake was firm, her smile genuine, and her complete ignorance about who I was absolutely perfect. "Mrs. Thompson," she said, extending her hand. I'd used my maiden name for the business, another stroke of genius that was paying dividends. "Thank you so much for this opportunity. I'm incredibly excited about the possibility of working with you." Excited. Oh, honey, you have no idea what kind of excitement you're walking into. "Please call me Sophia," I replied, gesturing for her to sit. "I've reviewed your resume and I'm impressed. Your previous employer spoke very highly of your organizational skills." I watched her face light up at the mention of her current job. "Mr. Davidson has been an amazing mentor," she gushed. "He's taught me so much about client relations and maintaining discretion in sensitive situations." Discretion. Right. Because sleeping with your married boss is the pinnacle of professional discretion. The girl was either incredibly naive or incredibly good at compartmentalizing. Either way, it was about to become my entertainment. "Tell me, Madison," I continued, leaning back in my chair with the casual authority of someone who held all the cards. "How do you handle complex situations? Say, when personal and professional boundaries become blurred." She shifted slightly in her seat, and I caught a flicker of something. Guilt? Awareness? Cross her features. "I believe in maintaining strict professional boundaries," she said carefully. "Personal feelings should never interfere with work performance." Personal feelings. Oh, this was rich. The girl was sitting in my office, interviewing to be my personal assistant, while personally feeling up my husband on the side. The universe's sense of humor was truly unmatched. "Excellent answer," I said, making a note on her resume. "Now, this position would require extensive coordination with my personal life as well. Some after-hours work, weekend events, family gatherings. Would that be a problem?" "Not at all," she replied eagerly. "I'm very flexible with my schedule." Flexible. There was that word again. Andrew certainly seemed to appreciate her flexibility. The interview continued for another 30 minutes, during which Madison proved herself to be articulate, ambitious, and completely unaware that she was interviewing with the wife of her affair partner. It was like watching a car accident in slow motion, except I was the one controlling both vehicles. "Well, Madison," I said finally, standing to signal the end of our meeting, "I'm very impressed. I think you'd be perfect for this position. The salary is $65,000, plus benefits, with potential for bonuses based on performance." It was a significant bump from what Andrew was probably paying her, and I watched her eyes widen with genuine excitement. That's incredible. Thank you so much, Sophia. There is one thing," I added, as if it had just occurred to me. "I'll need you to start immediately. Would giving 2 weeks' notice at your current position be a problem?" For a split second, I saw panic flash across her face. 2 weeks without seeing Andrew every day? 2 weeks of potentially awkward explanations about why she was leaving? This was going to be fun. I'm sure we can work something out," she stammered. "Mr. Davidson is very understanding about career advancement opportunities." Understanding. Yes, I'm sure he'd be very understanding about his mistress taking a job with his wife. This was going to be educational for everyone involved. "Wonderful," I said, extending my hand again. "Welcome to the team, Madison. I have a feeling this is going to be a very enlightening experience for both of us." She shook my hand with the enthusiasm of someone who just won the lottery, completely unaware that she'd actually just bought a ticket to the most expensive education of her life. That evening, I waited for Andrew to come home with the patience of a spider who'd just finished weaving the perfect web. He walked through the door at his usual time, looking slightly disheveled and wearing that guilty expression that I now recognized as his "I just cheated on my wife" face. Funny how obvious the signs become once you know what to look for. "How was your day?" I asked innocently, not looking up from the magazine I was pretending to read. "Fine," he replied, loosening his tie. "Just the usual. Meetings, presentations, you know how it is." "Presentations? Is that what we're calling it now?" "Speaking of work," I said casually, "I hired a new personal assistant today. Really bright girl, excellent references. I think she's going to work out perfectly." Andrew made a non-committal noise from the kitchen, where he was grabbing a beer. Poor man was probably exhausted from all that work he'd been doing. "Actually," I continued, "you might know her. She's currently working at a marketing firm downtown. Madison Collins? Small world, right?" The sound of a beer bottle hitting the kitchen floor was music to my ears. "Madison?" Andrew appeared in the doorway, his face pale as fresh mozzarella. "Madison Collins?" "Yes. Do you know her?" I asked, looking up with wide, innocent eyes. She mentioned her current boss speaks very highly of her organizational skills. Said he's been an amazing mentor. Mentor. The word hung between us like a loaded gun, and I watched Andrew's brain work overtime, trying to process this new information. His mistress was about to become his wife's employee. The cosmic justice was so beautiful, it almost brought tears to my eyes. She works for our firm. Yes," he managed to stammer. "Small world indeed. Isn't it wonderful?" I beamed. "She starts Thursday. I'm so excited to work closely with her." Thursday morning arrived with all the fanfare of Independence Day, if Independence Day involved watching your husband's mistress unknowingly walk into a trap of epic proportions. I'd spent the previous 2 days setting up Madison's workspace, a lovely little desk right outside my office, complete with a clear view of my personal life through the glass partition. Privacy was so overrated anyway. Andrew had been acting like a man walking to his own execution since Monday night. He'd barely slept, kept checking his phone obsessively, and had that haunted look of someone who knew the universe was about to collect on a debt. I'd watched him struggle with whether to warn Madison, but how exactly do you explain to your mistress that she's about to work for your wife without revealing the whole affair? Chess, darling. It's all about thinking several moves ahead. "Good morning, Sophia." Madison breezed into the office at precisely 9 a.m., carrying a coffee cup and wearing what I can only describe as first-day enthusiasm. She looked fresh, optimistic, and completely unprepared for the psychological minefield she'd just entered. "Madison, welcome to the team," I replied, standing to greet her with the kind of warm smile that magazine articles describe as genuine but mysterious. "I hope you're ready to jump right in. We have a lot to accomplish together." Oh, we certainly did. I spent the morning introducing Madison to my business operations, explaining the various clients and projects she'd be managing. She was actually quite competent. Andrew hadn't been lying about her organizational skills. Too bad those skills apparently didn't extend to organizing her moral compass. "Your first major project," I announced around 11 a.m., "will be coordinating my husband's surprise birthday party next month. It's going to be quite the event. Family, friends, colleagues. Very intimate. Very personal." I watched her pen pause mid-note. "Your husband's birthday party?" "Yes, Andrew. He works in marketing too, actually. Probably in the same circles as your previous employer. Another one of those wonderful coincidences." I smiled brightly, like someone completely oblivious to the irony. "He's turning 35, so I want to make it extra special. 8 years of marriage, and I still want to surprise him." The color drained from Madison's face faster than water from a bathtub. She mumbled something about it sounding lovely, but I could practically hear the gears grinding in her head. Poor girl was finally starting to connect the dots, and the picture wasn't pretty. "Oh, and Madison?" I added, as if it were an afterthought. "I'll need you to work closely with Andrew on the guest list. Make sure we don't miss anyone important. You know how men are. They never remember the details that matter. Details. Like the fact that he was sleeping with his wife's new assistant. Those kinds of details." The rest of the week was a masterpiece of psychological theater. I assigned Madison tasks that required her to learn intimate details about my marriage, organizing our anniversary photos, coordinating with our couple friends, managing Andrew's personal calendar. Each assignment was another thread in the web I was weaving, and I watched her grow more uncomfortable with each passing day. The real genius was in the timing. I scheduled her lunch breaks to coincide with Andrew's, knowing he'd be too terrified to see her. I mentioned casual details about our relationship during our morning briefings, how Andrew liked his coffee, his favorite restaurants, the pet names we used. I watched her face during these revelations, documenting every flicker of recognition, every moment of dawning horror. By Friday, Madison looked like she'd been hit by a truck carrying a load of karma and regret. She'd figured out who I was, but she was trapped in a situation where she couldn't quit without looking suspicious, and she couldn't confront me without admitting to the affair. It was beautiful in its simplicity. "Madison," I said during our end-of-week review, "you seem distracted lately. Is everything all right? You know you can talk to me about anything." The irony was so thick you could cut it with a knife. Here I was, offering a sympathetic ear to the woman who'd been sleeping with my husband, while she sat there knowing exactly who I was, but unable to say a word. "I'm fine," she managed to whisper, "just adjusting to the new role." "Of course," I nodded sympathetically. Starting a new job can be overwhelming, especially when it involves such personal responsibilities. But don't worry, I have complete faith in your ability to handle complex situations. Complex situations, like adultery, like lying to your employer, like realizing you've walked into a trap of your own making. That weekend, I began phase 2 of my master plan. The birthday party was still 3 weeks away, but I needed to escalate the psychological pressure. I called Madison on Saturday morning with an urgent request. "Madison, I'm so sorry to bother you on the weekend," I said, using my best desperate wife voice. "But I need a huge favor. Andrew's been acting so strange lately. Distant, secretive. I'm worried he might be having second thoughts about our marriage." The silence on the other end of the line was deafening. "I was hoping you could help me plan something special to remind him why he fell in love with me in the first place. Rekindle that spark. What do you think?" "What I think, dear Madison, is that you're about to learn what real torture feels like. Of course, Sophia, whatever you need." "You're an angel," I gushed. I knew I could count on you. After all, who better to help save a marriage than someone who truly understands the importance of loyalty and commitment? I could practically hear her soul leaving her body through the phone. The following Monday brought fresh opportunities for creative cruelty. I had Madison research romantic restaurants for surprise date nights, coordinate couples' activities, and even help me shop for lingerie online. Each task was designed to remind her that she was actively helping the wife whose husband she was sleeping with, or had been sleeping with, since their opportunities for alone time had been severely limited since she started working for me. "Sophia," she said during our afternoon meeting, her voice barely above a whisper, "I need to tell you something." This was it. The moment I'd been building toward all week. I leaned forward with concerned wife energy, ready to play my final card. "What is it, Madison? You look terrible. Have you been sleeping?" She took a shaky breath, and I could see the internal battle raging behind her eyes. Confess and face the consequences, or continue living in this psychological purgatory I'd created. I think I should quit." "Quit?" I gasped, clutching my chest like a Victorian maiden. "But why? Have I done something wrong? I thought we were working so well together." "It's not you," she stammered. "It's just complicated." Complicated. The understatement of the century. "Madison," I said gently, reaching across the desk to pat her hand in what anyone watching would interpret as genuine concern. "Whatever it is, we can work through it together. That's what good employers do. We support each other through difficult times." The look in her eyes was pure anguish. She knew. I knew she knew. She knew I knew she knew. But the game required us to keep playing our roles until someone finally called checkmate. "Trust me," I continued with a smile that would have made the Mona Lisa jealous. "Everything is going to work out exactly as it should." The third week of Madison's employment brought the kind of dramatic tension that Shakespeare would have envied. She'd stopped trying to quit, probably realizing that explaining her sudden departure to Andrew would require conversations she wasn't prepared to have. Instead, she'd settled into a routine of quiet desperation that I found absolutely fascinating to observe. Andrew, meanwhile, had developed what I can only describe as stress-induced paranoia. He'd taken to working late every night, claiming sudden urgent projects that required his immediate attention. Translation: he was hiding at the office, afraid to come home and face questions about his day, terrified that I might casually mention something Madison had told me. The man was living in his own personal horror movie, and I was the director, producer, and star. "Darling," I said over breakfast on Wednesday morning, "you've been working so hard lately. Maybe you should take a day off. Spend some time with your colleagues. I know how much you value those professional relationships." He nearly choked on his coffee. No, I'm fine. Just busy season, you know." "Busy season. In marketing, in November." "Sure, honey." "Well, if you insist," I shrugged. "Oh, by the way, Madison has been absolutely invaluable with the party planning. She has such insight into what makes people happy. It's like she really understands the psychology of relationships." The psychology of relationships. Andrew's face went through more color changes than a chameleon having an identity crisis. I sipped my coffee and pretended not to notice his existential breakdown happening in real time across the breakfast table. That afternoon, I decided it was time to accelerate the timeline. Phase 3 of my master plan required a more direct approach, and Madison's growing anxiety was reaching the perfect pitch for maximum impact. "Madison," I announced during our daily briefing, "I've had the most wonderful idea for Andrew's party. Instead of just a regular birthday celebration, let's make it a renewal of our wedding vows." She dropped her pen. Actually dropped it, like her fingers had forgotten how to function. "A vow renewal?" she whispered. "Yes, 8 years of marriage and we're still madly in love. It's so rare these days, don't you think? True loyalty, genuine commitment, the kind of bond that can't be broken by temptation or outside influences." I watched her process this information, seeing the exact moment she realized she was being asked to plan the celebration of a marriage she'd been actively trying to destroy. The cosmic justice was so beautiful, I almost wanted to frame it. "Sophia, I really don't think—" "Oh, but you're perfect for this," I interrupted, clapping my hands together with enthusiasm that would have made cheerleaders weep with envy. "You understand the importance of discretion, of keeping personal and professional boundaries separate. Plus, you have such a keen eye for detail. I want everything to be absolutely perfect. Perfect. Like the trap I'd spent 3 weeks constructing around her. I'll need you to coordinate with Andrew directly on this, I continued, pulling out my phone. Let me call him right now and tell him the plan. He's going to be so surprised. No, Madison practically shrieked, then caught herself. I mean, maybe it should be a surprise for later? Don't you think planning it yourself would be more meaningful? Nonsense. I waved her off, already dialing. Andrew? Darling, guess what? We're going to renew our vows at your birthday party. Isn't that romantic? Madison will coordinate everything with you. What? No, Madison Collins, my assistant. You know, the incredibly organized girl who's been helping with the party? She'll call you this afternoon to discuss details. The silence on the other end of the line was so profound, I wondered if the phone had actually exploded from the sheer force of Andrew's panic. Andrew? Are you there? Yes. That sounds wonderful. Wonderful. The man sounded like he was planning his own funeral, which, in a sense, he was. I hung up and turned back to Madison, who looked like she'd just witnessed the apocalypse. There. All set. You two can work out all the details together. After all, who knows Andrew better than his devoted assistant? The next few days were comedy gold. I assigned Madison increasingly personal tasks. Writing vow renewal invitations, researching romantic poetry, selecting music that celebrated enduring love and unwavering faithfulness. Each assignment was another twist of the knife, another reminder of exactly what she'd been helping to destroy. The real masterpiece came when I asked her to help me write new vows for the ceremony. We spent an entire afternoon crafting promises about loyalty, honesty, and the sacred trust between husband and wife. Madison's handwriting got shakier with each word she wrote, but she couldn't refuse without raising suspicions. Read this back to me, I instructed, handing her the draft. I want to make sure it captures everything I feel about our marriage. She cleared her throat nervously. I promise to love you faithfully, to honor the sacred bond between us, and to never betray the trust you've placed in my heart. I vow to choose you every day, forsaking all others, and to build our future on a foundation of honesty and unwavering commitment. Perfect, I smiled. Andrew is going to love hearing those words. Don't you think it's beautiful when someone recommits to their promises? When they choose to put their marriage first, no matter what temptations they might face? Madison nodded weakly, probably wondering if she could fake her own death to escape this situation. Friday afternoon brought the culmination of 3 weeks of psychological warfare. I called Madison into my office for what I announced would be our final party planning session. I have one last surprise for Andrew, I said, pulling out an elegant envelope. I've written him a personal letter to read before the vow renewal. Something private, just between husband and wife. Would you mind delivering it to him personally? I want to make sure he gets it tonight. She took the envelope with trembling hands, not knowing that inside was a letter that would change everything. Not a love letter. Oh no, nothing that simple. Instead, it was a detailed account of everything I'd observed over the past month, every lie I'd uncovered, every piece of evidence I'd gathered. It was an invitation to come clean before tomorrow night's party, or face the consequences in front of everyone we knew. Madison, I said gently, standing to place a motherly hand on her shoulder, I want you to know how much I've appreciated your help with this. Your dedication to my marriage has been illuminating. She looked up at me with eyes full of terror and dawning realization. She finally understood that I'd known all along, that every task, every assignment, every moment of the past 3 weeks had been carefully orchestrated to bring us to this exact moment. Sophia, Shh, I whispered, squeezing her shoulder. There's nothing you need to say. Tomorrow night, everything will be exactly as it should be. The truth has a funny way of revealing itself, doesn't it? She nodded mutely and walked out of my office, clutching the envelope that contained her professional destruction and probably the end of her relationship with Andrew. I watched her leave through my glass partition, finally allowing myself the satisfied smile I'd been holding back for 3 weeks. Tomorrow night's party was going to be absolutely unforgettable. Saturday evening arrived with all the pomp and circumstance of a royal execution. which, in retrospect, was exactly what it turned out to be. The venue looked absolutely stunning. Madison had done excellent work despite her mounting existential crisis. Twinkling lights, elegant flowers, tables arranged perfectly for our 40 closest friends and family members. Everything was ready for what they thought would be a birthday celebration and vow renewal, but what I knew would be the most spectacular public unmasking in social history. Andrew had received my letter, judging by the fact that he'd called in sick to work on Friday and spent the entire day pacing around our house like a caged animal. He kept starting conversations with me, then stopping mid-sentence, as if he were trying to work up the courage for a confession that never came. By Saturday afternoon, he looked like a man preparing for his own wake. "You look handsome," I told him as we got ready, adjusting his tie with the tender care of a wife who absolutely was not about to publicly destroy his life in approximately 2 hours. "This is going to be such a memorable evening." Memorable, the understatement of our marriage. Madison had arrived early to handle final preparations, looking like she'd aged 5 years in the past week. She'd clearly spent the weekend debating whether to show up at all, but here she was, trapped by the same professional obligations that had gotten her into this mess in the first place. The irony was poetry in motion. "Everything looks perfect, Madison," I said warmly as guests began arriving. "You've really outdone yourself. I couldn't have asked for a better assistant." She managed a weak smile that looked more like a grimace. "Thank you, Sophia. I hope everything goes smoothly tonight." Smoothly. Oh, honey, you have no idea what's about to happen. Our guests mingled and chatted, completely unaware that they were about to witness the most educational dinner theater performance of their lives. I watched Andrew work the room, shaking hands and accepting birthday wishes while sweating through his expensive shirt. Every few minutes, his eyes would dart to Madison, who was stationed near the kitchen, coordinating with the catering staff and trying to blend into the wallpaper. At exactly 8 p.m., I called everyone to attention for the vow renewal ceremony. Andrew and I stood before our friends and family, surrounded by candlelight and flowers, as our officiant began the traditional words about love, commitment, and the sacred bonds of marriage. The beautiful irony of it all was almost overwhelming. "Before we begin the vow exchange," I announced, stepping forward with a bright smile, "I'd like to thank everyone who helped make tonight possible, especially my wonderful assistant Madison, who's been absolutely instrumental in planning this celebration of our marriage." I gestured for Madison to step forward, watching her face pale as every eye in the room turned toward her. She shook her head slightly, but I insisted with the kind of gentle authority that couldn't be refused in public. "Madison has been working so closely with Andrew and me over the past month," I continued, my voice carrying clearly through the suddenly quiet room. "She's really gotten to know us as a couple, haven't you, Madison?" She nodded mutely, trapped between her desire to disappear and the social pressure of 40 people staring at her expectantly. "In fact," I said, pulling out a second envelope, not the letter I'd given Andrew, but something far more devastating. "Madison has been so dedicated to understanding our relationship that she helped me write these new vows. She really understands the importance of loyalty and faithfulness in marriage." Andrew's face had gone completely white. Madison looked like she might actually faint. The crowd watched with the fascinated attention of people sensing drama, but not yet understanding its scope. "But before I read these beautiful vows Madison helped craft," I continued, my smile never wavering, "I thought it would be appropriate to share something else. You see, over the past month, I've learned so much about trust, about honesty, and about the importance of really knowing the people closest to you." I opened the envelope, revealing printed screenshots of text messages, photos, emails, months of evidence that painted a very clear picture of Andrew and Madison's relationship. The crowd began to murmur as understanding dawned. "For instance," I said conversationally, "I learned that some people will look you in the eye every morning and lie about where they're going and who they're seeing. I learned that others will take a job working for someone while secretly betraying them in the most intimate way possible." Madison made a small, wounded sound. Andrew looked like he was about to pass out. "But most importantly," I continued, holding up the evidence for everyone to see, "I learned that when you give people enough rope, They'll hang themselves so thoroughly that you barely need to do anything except watch. The room erupted in shocked whispers and gasps. Someone in the back actually started applauding. Probably my sister, who'd never liked Andrew much anyway. So instead of renewing vows built on lies, I concluded, my voice carrying the satisfied authority of someone who'd just executed the perfect long game, I think we should celebrate honesty instead. Andrew, Madison, would either of you like to share any honest thoughts with our guests? Andrew opened his mouth, then closed it, then opened it again like a fish gasping for air. Madison had tears streaming down her face, caught between humiliation and relief that the charade was finally over. Andrew started, then stopped. What could he possibly say? That it wasn't what it looked like? That there was some reasonable explanation for months of affair evidence presented by his wife in front of 40 witnesses? No? I asked pleasantly. Nothing to add? Well, then I suppose there's only one thing left to say. I turned to address our stunned guests, feeling lighter than I had in months. Thank you all for coming tonight. Consider this both a birthday party and a divorce announcement. The bar remains open, the food is paid for, and the entertainment, well, that's been priceless. Madison, your final paycheck will be direct deposited on Monday. Andrew, your things will be packed and waiting by the door when you get home. I set the microphone down, gathered my purse, and walked toward the exit with the dignity of a woman who'd just won the most satisfying game of chess in human history. Sophia, wait, Andrew called after me, finally finding his voice. I turned back with a smile that was pure victory. Oh, darling, there's nothing left to wait for. I've been waiting for you to be honest for months, and clearly, that's never going to happen. But don't worry. I'm sure you and Madison can figure things out together. After all, you both have such excellent organizational skills. And with that, I walked out of my own party and into the most liberating night of my life. 6 months later, I'm running my business better than ever. Andrew is paying alimony that funds my new lifestyle beautifully, and Madison is apparently working at a coffee shop in Brooklyn. Turns out the marketing industry is surprisingly small when word gets around about your professional ethics. The best part? I received a wedding invitation last week from another couple in our social circle, with a handwritten note. Please bring your event planning expertise. We want our celebration to be half as memorable as yours was. Some people throw dishes when they discover infidelity. Some people key cars or burn clothes. But the truly satisfying revenge? That's when you turn your betrayal into performance art, complete with audience participation and a standing ovation. After all, if you're going to get cheated on, you might as well make it entertaining, and profitable, and absolutely, devastatingly unforgettable. In the end, I learned that marriage really is about finding someone who'll stand by you through anything, even when that anything includes discovering they're a lying, cheating disaster and you need to publicly destroy their life as creatively as possible. Family loyalty is a beautiful thing. It's just a shame some people confuse it with stupidity.